Good morning, guys. And Victor, I'd want you to think two things.
Yes.
In our communication class, we learned that communication is not what is heard, what is said, but what is heard.
Yeah.
So the issue of perception. So when Kenyans had dialogue, I think that is what stood out. Then we saw that the people who were flanking the president. Most iconic was the leader of opposition, that is Raila Odinga, who is a former premier, who is looking at the candidacy of, at the African Union, right? This comes at a time when we have an amorphous, ambiguous group that has really taken the country's politics as storm, and you're talking about Gen Z. Then the question of dialogue, right? That word in itself. You see, history repeats itself. And I do not blame netizens, so to speak, for thinking dialogue going back to 2017, and in particular, those steps. So sometimes it's not what is said, but what is perceived. And we're borrowing heavily from history. And you're right, Victor. Maybe it's because of our history that a majority of Kenyans are really questioning the timing and the words in it. Remember also from yesterday, the president set up a 150-member task force to just look at issues that have been raised by Generation Z, so to speak. Among the 150, 50 are going to be the youth, and 100 a collection of stakeholders from across the country. Coming at a time when Generation Z has argued that it is no longer business as usual, that they are done listening to talk, they want action. And I'm sure you're going to put it into perspective for us when you speak matters politics with our panel today, Victor. So these are emerging issues.
Yeah.
So much is at play. So much is at play. So much is at play. But now let's bring you up to speed and do a recap of what we are talking about, just to bring you up to speed. And you can be part of this conversation. You can get us on X at KBC Channel 1. We start off with now. That particular threat of recalling members of parliament, may that just actually be on the horizon. Why? It's because the process of identifying new commissioners to serve in the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission has kicked off with the signing of the IEBC bill by President William Ruto. Now, this in a fast that saw the opposition witness the signing of the bill at KICC, and the president called for a bipartisan approach by the political class to collectively pull together for the interest of the country. Abdi Aziz Hashim has the details of that particular act.
Your Excellency, this bill gives a roadmap to the formation of the IEBC. It commences with the IEBC selection panel, which will now comprise of 9 persons.
The newly enacted laws on electoral reforms by President William Ruto has set the ball rolling towards the new electoral body ahead of the 2027 general elections.
The signing of this bill paves way for the establishment of the selection panel for the appointment of IEBC commissioners. The IEBC remains a cornerstone of our democracy, responsible for overseeing regular elections at various levels.
The new bill amends the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission IEBC Act, overhauling the IEBC Commissioner's selection process, radically altering the Commission's administration and empowering the next IEBC chairperson.
This bill, Your Excellency, is the first bill to anchor the resolutions of the Houses of Parliament with respect to the NADCO report.
The Act has increased the number of the members of the selection panel from 7 to 9 members, as it was recommended by the National Dialogue Committee that comprised of both the ruling coalition and the opposition. The panel will consist of 2 persons nominated by the Parliamentary Service Commission, representing the majority and minority parties or coalitions of parties. The panel will also consist of 3 persons nominated by the Political Parties Liaison Committee. The Law Society of Kenya and the Institute of Certified Public Accounts of Kenya has 1 slot each, and 2 persons will be nominated by the Interreligious Council of Kenya. The slot assigned to the Public Service Commission was removed in the new law. Further, the bodies named have 14 days to submit the names of their preferred members, while the President has 7 days to appoint the panel upon receiving the names.
The bodies which are nominating more than 2 persons, Your Excellency, are required to also observe the 2/3 gender rule.
The new law stipulates that the existing panel, immediately before the commencement of this act, stand dissolved, but the members can be nominated to serve in the subsequent panel. And in a bid to prevent another scenario where the former IBC chairperson Wafula Chebukati was at crossroad with his deputy Juliana Cherera, which almost plunged the country into chaos.
But before they are declared, they are processed, and we are saying that we did not process. And that's why they come out with glaring mistakes, and we don't take ownership of the same.
A notable structural change has been instituted by the Act by eliminating provisions allowing the vice chairperson or any other member to act as the chairperson in the event of a vacancy. The move is intended to consolidate leadership and maintain clear demarcation in the management of the elections.
In the last elections, the whole world was stunned when we saw an election commission that was completely divided. Some saying one thing, others saying one thing.
Both you, Mr. President, Mr. Raila Odinga, the Prime Minister, will have to agree on, perhaps most importantly, on who becomes the chair of the new IBC.
The new law states that the next batch of commissioners should be picked from highly qualified persons well versed in areas of information technology, accounting, law and governance.
There must be professionalism and integrity as part of the cardinal principles of the men and women who will be charged with the responsibility of overseeing our elections.
The commission members shall still be appointed for a single term of 6 years and shall not be eligible for reappointment. The process of replacement of a chairperson or a member of the commission shall commence at least 6 months before the lapse of the term of the chairperson or a member of the commission.
The secretary to the commission, giving the secretary a term of 4 years, renewable once.
Once the selection panel is appointed, the team will have 90 days to conclude the exercise, and the country could have a fully new constituted IBC by October 1st or even earlier.
They should proceed with dispatch and expedite the other recommendations that are contained in the NATCO report and process the necessary bills.
If we find a solution to this issue of IBC, it will be on the way to resolving very many issues in our country.
Now, to a development that has caused a lot of discourse, especially on social media platforms, is where a 150-member multi-sectoral committee is expected to deal with pertinent issues raised by Gen Z will begin a hearing forum from Monday next week. Here's John Jacob Curia with the details.
The head of public service, Felix Koske, announced the formation of a national multi-sectoral forum to engage all stakeholders in addressing concerns raised by the youth during the anti-finance bill protests. Despite there being a lull over the last 2 weeks on the direction of the forum, the signing of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission IEBC bill breathed life to the proposal. At the signing of the bill, President William Ruto called for a bipartisan approach in dealing with the challenges the country faces, including debt repayment and unemployment.
I am very confident that, as always, Kenya knows how to pull together, and leaders know how to come together in the best interest, not of individuals, not of parties, but the collective body of the Kenyan people.
His call was backed by Azimio principals Raila Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka, who called on the president to heed to the call of the youth and deal decisively with the burden of the high cost of living.
We require now a wider engagement so that people have an opportunity to vomit all that is there in their chest. in order that we can be able to find a way forward.
Perhaps we need now to go back to Bomas, because during the presentations, Kimani and Cheruiyot may remember, and Wandai was deputizing me, that a lot of Kenyans wanted us to open this space. The space has been opened by Gen Z.
Now that the president has accepted to have a discussion with our young population, with our leaders, we call upon the people of Kenya to give dialogue a chance.
It appears that must have set the pace for the conversation that lasted for more than 40 minutes when the leaders retreated to the VVIP lounge of the Kenyatta International Convention Center. President William Ruto announced the commencement date of a multi-sectoral forum expected to last a week.
We look forward to beginning the forum on Monday next week. The various stakeholders will be required to submit their representatives by Friday this week.
50 members of the multi-sectoral forum will be youth, while the remaining 100 members will consist of civil society, religious organizations, professional bodies, business community and organizations, academia, parliamentary leadership, Council of Governors and other stakeholders.
Dialogue is the way forward out of the crisis that we're having today in our country. We've agreed that we give people an opportunity to be heard, to express themselves, to come out with the grievances which are actually ailing our country today.
We will move ahead with the multi-sectoral forum. And we have agreed that a membership of 150 representatives of various stakeholders, 50 of whom shall be young people of Kenya.
Organizations expected to participate in the forum have until Friday to nominate representatives, and the nominees to the forum will meet their expenses. The forum will focus on 6 issues as identified by the youth, namely unemployment, Kenya's tax policy, national debt burden, representation and accountability, anti-corruption measures, and any other issues deemed appropriate.
And back to that particular development there elicited out a lot of debate, including Wiper parties Kalonzo Musyoka, Martha Karua of NARC Kenya and Eugene Wamalwa of DAP-K Kenya are among key political figures and Kenyans online who have dismissed calls for dialogue to end the Gen Z protests to demand for good governance and accountability in the government.
Immediately after Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition leader Raila Odinga joined President William Ruto in calling for dialogue to quell the nationwide Gen Z protest, a section of Kenyans online, including notable politicians, quickly dismissed the call. Through a statement on X, Wiper's Kalonzo Musyoka, who was among the leaders accompanying Raila Odinga and President William Ruto at the KICC press conference after the presidential assent to the IBC bill, hurriedly disassociated himself from the call for dialogue. He said, and I quote, "Read the mood of the people. Kenya's Gen Z have set the standard and are demanding for action. Kenya would not be in this crisis if the Ruto regime had listened and addressed the number one problem of the cost of living, as well as fully implementing the NADCO report." End of quote. He was also quick to note that he was not keen on the photo op on the red carpet at the KCC stairs. NARC Kenya leader Martha Karua also penned on her X account that, and I quote, "Dialogue can only be meaningful if the players have good faith and are guided by the best interests of the people. Let's be careful as the political class, lest we hijack the genuine clamor for accountability and reforms by the Gen Z." End of quote. Jubilee Party Secretary General Jeremiah Kioni on his side wrote, "The Waki report, the Ndongo report, TJRC report, BBA report, and the NADCO report, all these were done under dialogues. How many more? The writing is on the wall. Implement the Constitution." End of quote. Another notable figure in the Azimio coalition who read from a different script is DAP Kenya leader Eugene Wamalwa. He wrote on X, and I quote, "I am not boarding. The Gen Zs wanted action, not setting up dialogue forums that will end up discussing positions for a few politicians and cleansing. The country has a historical litany of such with reports dusted in shelves." End of quote. Agostino Neto wrote on X, and I quote, "Kenya does not need dialogue. Don't be stuck in the past." End of quote. However, defending Raila Odinga, ODM Director of Communication Philip Etale said one of the reasons Kenyans went to the streets in 2023 was the IBC issue, and he was part and parcel of the NADCO process, the reason he attended the signing of the IBC bill. This as President William Ruto remained adamant, calling on youth organizations to forward representatives to the multi-sectoral forum by Friday to kick off the dialogue.
A lot of debate. If you're on social media, especially X, you have seen these particular responses. You too can be part of this conversation. Our X handle is at KBC Channel 1. Gen Z are saying, kama sio sasa, ni sasa hivi. And they don't want dialogue, they want action. What is your take? And if there's no room for dialogue, then what next? Now, crossing over to Rongo, where 2 people have been confirmed dead after a 750-meter gold mine wall collapsed in Kanga area, Migori County. Rescue operations commenced immediately, with 6 miners successfully rescued from the rubble. More than 10 people are still missing as rescue operations continue. The injured are receiving treatment at Rongo Sub-County Hospital.
About 18 people had been trapped inside. It's about 750 feet deeper. So that's too deep for local rescuers to assist us.
Tulikuja hapa kuangalia watu mpaka sasa hivi bado hawajatoa. Naona wanachangamuka wale watu wanatoa, wengine wenye wamepata ajali wapo huko ndani wanatoka nje, lakini ni ile kitu yenye tunaomba ni Mungu tu ndiye atatusaidia tutoe hao watu ndani.
We also will be having, keeping an eye on the train accident that took place in Kajiado, where one person died and 46 others were injured. That is after a commuter train was involved in an accident at the Kenya Mabu Quarry village, commonly referred to as MQ, in Kajiado West. And also on matters business is that medium, small and micro Enterprise Cabinet Secretary Simon Chilugui has indeed acknowledged that there could have been possibilities of data errors and duplication during the early stages of the Hustler Fund when it started. However, this is just a response to the Auditor General's audit report that denoted some missing coins there, or rather some missing monies under this Hustler Fund. So much is happening, but this is just to put a cap on matters in the headlines. You are welcome to peruse our website, that is www.kbc.co.ke. On a day, we are going to be keeping an eye on MOH offices there, where medical intern doctors have been pitching tent, calling for their reinstatement as permanent and pensionable. Will government cave or not? It is a wrap. I'm Regina Manyara. Have a great day ahead.